do with access. In this video, you'll learn why emotional intelligence isn't about tolerating everyone. It's about recognizing intent, enforcing psychological boundaries, and never apologizing for protecting your peace, because if they damaged you intentionally, then offering them a second chance isn't compassion, it's self-betrayal. There's a dangerous lie society quietly feeds you, that everyone deserves a second chance. But let's be honest, not all wounds are accidental. Not all damage is born from ignorance or emotional immaturity. Some people knew exactly what they were doing when they hurt you, and they did it anyway. They studied your softness, your loyalty, your patience, and used it against you. That's not a mistake. That's strategy. The psychology of intentional harm. People don't accidentally lie multiple times. They don't accidentally gaslight you into doubting your own memories. They don't accidentally betray your trust with precision, timing, and emotional manipulation. This is called premeditated emotional abuse. And here's the catch. They often frame it as just a misunderstanding after they get caught because they want a reset. They want access again. But emotional intelligence means recognizing that regret is not the same as remorse. Regret says, "I'm sorry I got caught." Remorse says, "I'm sorry I hurt you." One leads to change. The other leads to repetition. Emotional intelligence requires discernment. Too many people confuse kindness with gullibility, compassion with compliance. But when you allow someone who's already shown you their character to re-enter your life unchecked, you're not practicing mercy, you're betraying your own inner wisdom. The Stoics taught us this. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Seneca. But sometimes, it's not your imagination. Sometimes, the enemy wears a familiar face and speaks in soft tones. You don't need to overthink whether it was deliberate. You felt the intent. You saw the patterns. Don't let guilt override truth. Mistake versus pattern. Learn the difference. Anyone can mess up once. A sharp word said in anger. A forgotten promise. A lapse in judgment. But when the behavior becomes predictable, when every cycle ends in your pain and their excuses, that's not a mistake. That's a pattern. And patterns reveal priorities. If someone consistently chooses what benefits them at your expense, they're not confused. They're committed to themselves, and you need to be just as committed to your peace. Your emotional pain is a signal, not a curse. Here's what most people don't understand about pain. It's not just something to survive. It's information. It tells you something isn't right. This is unsafe. This is not love. And yet, many of us ignore that signal because of hope. We hope they'll change. We hope it was just a phase. We hope love can fix what character broke. But hope without boundaries becomes self-harm. You weren't put here to be someone's emotional punching bag in the name of forgiveness. Self-worth doesn't beg for re-entry. True self-worth says, "I don't hate you. I just love me more." It doesn't require anger, revenge, or dramatic exits. It requires clarity, because once you've seen someone's true nature, choosing them again is choosing your own destruction consciously. Emotional maturity is not about how much you can endure. It's about how much you will no longer allow. And when someone damages you on purpose, you have a responsibility not to them, but to yourself, to end access, Detachment is not cruelty. It's survival. Cutting someone off after intentional harm isn't cold, it's controlled. It's the quiet refusal to play a role in your own suffering. It's the moment you stop giving CPR to relationships that were already dead. You're not abandoning them. You're choosing yourself. And that's the highest form of emotional intelligence there is. So don't confuse their charm for change. Don't confuse their tears for transformation. Don't confuse their need for your energy as proof of their love. They had access to your soul and still chose harm. They had a chance to protect your trust and still chose betrayal. Now it's your turn to choose. And this time, choose wisely. Choose peace. Choose clarity. Choose self-respect over second chances. You can forgive someone and still never let them back in. That's not bitterness. That's clarity. Forgiveness is a personal act, a sacred release, a spiritual cleansing that frees you from the emotional weight of what they did. But forgiveness is not a door key. It's not a signal to resume what broke you. It doesn't mean reconciliation. It means liberation. Because some people misunderstand forgiveness. They think it means you've forgotten, that you've healed enough to tolerate their presence again, that your peace is proof that they deserve another chance. But here's the truth. Forgiveness is for your peace, not their return. Emotional intelligence means you forgive without repeating the cycle. Let's be clear, holding on to resentment is toxic. It rots your soul and steals your clarity. But so is inviting back the very energy that fractured you in the first place. Emotional intelligence isn't just about letting go. It's also about learning the lesson. If you forgive without boundaries, you become a playground for manipulation. If you heal but don't protect what's been healed, you invite ereinuri. So, forgive, but do it with discernment. Let the wound close, but don't reopen the battlefield. Forgiveness is a spiritual discipline, not an emotional weakness. Forgiveness isn't soft. It's not passive. It's not about letting someone off the hook. It's about taking yourself off the hook of revenge, of obsession, of endless what-ifs. When you forgive, you're not saying, "You were right." You're saying, "I refuse to let your actions define my state of mind." You're breaking spiritual ties. You're cleansing the poison from your soul. You're reclaiming your inner peace without seeking repayment from someone who is spiritually bankrupt. That's not weakness. That's power. True power is when your peace no longer requires their apology. Just because you've healed doesn't mean they've changed. One of the biggest traps of healing is assuming that because you've evolved, so have they. You begin to romanticize their potential. You tell yourself, maybe this time it will be different. But has their behavior actually changed? Have they taken responsibility, not just said sorry, but shown transformation through consistent actions? If the answer is no, then your healing should not become their shortcut back into your life. You don't owe anyone access just because you found inner peace. Boundaries after forgiveness are a form of self-respect. The Stoics believed in emotional mastery, and nothing screams emotional mastery like setting boundaries without guilt. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. Seneca: wasting time on people who've already proven their disregard for your value isn't noble. It's self-neglect. You can bless someone from afar. You can wish them healing without reopening the door. You can say, "I forgive you," without saying, "Come back." This is what high self-worth looks like in practice. Soft heart, firm boundary. Forgiveness without discernment is a setup for more pain. Let's be honest, how many times have you forgiven someone only to watch the same pattern repeat? How many times have you sacrificed your own peace because you believed giving them one more chance would make it right? At some point, it's not about them anymore. It's about you. Your desire to keep giving chances is rooted not in love, but in the hope that they'll become who you wanted them to be. But hope isn't a relationship strategy, and love without limits isn't pure, it's reckless. Forgiveness is the final chapter of a wound. Reopening that chapter doesn't rewrite the story. It just reopens the scar. What to say instead of "let's try again"? I've made peace with the past, but I'm not revisiting it. I wish you well far away from me. You're forgiven, but you're no longer welcome. This boundary isn't revenge. It's recovery. You don't need to justify your decision. Silence speaks when explanation fails. And sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is walk away without turning back. So forgive boldly, but never forget what it cost you to become this version of yourself. You didn't climb out of darkness just to hand the flashlight to someone who helped bury you. Your peace is sacred. Treat it like a fortress. Let forgiveness be your freedom, not your downfall. There's a dangerous misunderstanding in this world that being kind means being soft, that showing empathy makes you easy to manipulate, that if you don't scream, threaten, or retaliate, then somehow you've lost. But here's the truth. Kindness is not weakness. It is strength under complete control. It's not the absence of power, it's the refusal to abuse it. The person who could retaliate but chooses discipline is not weak. They are dangerous in the most elegant way because they've mastered themselves. Emotional intelligence looks like calm in chaos. People mistake emotional regulation for passivity. They think because you don't yell or cry or beg, you must be fragile. They misread your silence as submission, but emotional intelligence means you no longer react to every provocation. You know when to walk away. Not because you can't fight, but because you know it's not worth your energy. Your calm response doesn't mean you're numb. It means you've trained yourself to not bleed for people who stabbed you. You're no longer fighting for approval. You're protecting your peace like a warrior with a spiritual sword. The Stoic power of non-reactivity. The Stoics taught us that true strength is rooted in restraint, not suppression, but sovereignty. If someone does wrong, it is their own loss. You lose nothing by choosing not to be dragged into their chaos. Marcus Aurelius. Your kindness isn't a weakness, it's a form of psychological mastery. You don't let the storm outside determine the weather within. You've outgrown reactive living. You no longer match energy, you guard your own. Because kindness doesn't mean tolerating disrespect. It means you refuse to stoop to the level of those who feed on drama. Kindness with boundaries is the ultimate power. Let's make something clear. Kindness without boundaries is not virtue, it's vulnerability. It's letting emotional vampires drink from your soul and calling it compassion. You are allowed to be kind and still say no. You are allowed to be compassionate and still walk away. You are allowed to be forgiving and still block them from your life forever. Because if your kindness costs you your peace, your self-worth, or your mental clarity. It's no longer kindness, it's self-neglect. The abuser's favorite lie, but you're too nice. Toxic people thrive on your kindness. They weaponize it. They tell you, you're too sensitive, too soft, too good for this world. That's not a compliment. It's a warning sign. Because what they're really saying is, I know I can hurt you, and you'll still stay. I know I can cross your boundaries, and you'll explain them away. I know your empathy will protect me more than it protects you. But that version of you is gone. You've upgraded. You now understand kindness without self-respect is emotional slavery. Quiet confidence is more powerful than loud rage. People think power is loud, that you have to prove something, make noise, clap back, destroy. But the highest level of confidence is quiet. It doesn't argue, it doesn't explain, it doesn't beg. It just walks with posture, with purpose, with presence. And that's what terrifies manipulators the most. You don't need to win anymore. You've already won by removing them from your space. You've reclaimed your power by not needing their validation. Kindness with teeth is still kindness. Your kindness can have standards. It can come with rules. It can wear armor. You're not here to be anyone's emotional sponge. You're not here to explain your boundaries until someone finally respects them. You are kind not because they deserve it, but because you refuse to become them. But you are also clear. And clarity is kindness to yourself. Sonu, you're not weak for choosing grace. You're not naive for choosing empathy. You're not soft for letting go instead of lashing out. You are wise. You are grounded. You are no longer reacting from trauma. You are responding from power. And when your kindness is no longer available to those who abused it, that's not revenge. That's evolution. You think you need closure, but what you really want is validation. You want them to admit they were wrong, to explain why they hurt you, to acknowledge that what they did broke something sacred inside you. And while that desire is human, it's also a trap. Because people who hurt you intentionally don't give closure. They give confusion. They vanish. They gaslight. They rewrite the story to make you the villain. And when you go searching for clarity in the ruins they left behind, you don't find peace. You find a deeper kind of torment. Emotional intelligence is knowing when to let silence speak. The truth is, closure doesn't come from their apology. It comes from your decision to stop waiting for one. People who damage you on purpose aren't looking to make amends. They're looking to maintain control even through your confusion, even through your questions, especially through your longing. The longer you wait for closure, the longer they own a part of your peace. Emotional intelligence is recognizing when the conversation is already over, even if they never gave you the courtesy of a goodbye. Let go of the fantasy of a satisfying ending. We've been conditioned by stories, movies, and wishful thinking to expect a neat conclusion. They come back. They apologize. You cry. They change. Everything makes sense. But real life is messier than fiction. Real closure isn't a shared moment. It's a private revolution inside your soul. It's waking up one day and realizing I no longer need answers. I just need peace. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop chasing closure is when healing finally begins. Their silence is an answer. Sometimes, the lack of response is the response. Sometimes, the disappearing act is the closure. You don't need them to admit they were wrong. Their actions already revealed everything. They didn't forget you. They chose not to face you. They weren't confused. They calculated what they did, and they moved on. And the more you chase why, the deeper you fall into their emotional game, because closure, when weaponized, becomes a form of manipulation, when closure is a delayed form of self-betrayal. Let's be brutally honest. Sometimes, seeking closure is just code for I still want them to care. I still want a reason to hold on. I still haven't accepted that they chose to hurt me. But here's the truth. No one wants to hear if they were capable of closure. They wouldn't have caused the kind of damage that requires it. So every time you text, every time you check their social media, every time you hope they'll reach out, you're not seeking closure. You're reopening the wound. That's not healing. That's self-betrayal in disguise. True closure is self-generated. You create closure when you stop waiting for it. You create peace when you stop depending on theirs. You look at what happened. You accept what it cost. You grieve the version of yourself that tolerated it. And then you elevate beyond it. You write your own ending. You choose your own peace. You say to yourself, they don't have the right to explain my worth. Their silence will not be louder than my healing. Their absence is no longer a mystery, it's a message. Spiritual discipline means you walk without closure. Stoicism teaches us this. You are not owed anything, not even an apology. The universe doesn't guarantee resolution. What it offers instead is perspective. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Epictetus. So you walk with dignity, with clarity, with self-respect, not because everything makes sense, but because you no longer need it to. Your peace is not a group. Project closure is not something you negotiate. It's not a group effort. It's a solo decision that says, I refuse to stay stuck in a chapter someone else closed without my permission. You take your power back, not by finishing the conversation, but by ending the attachment. You don't need closure to heal. You need truth. And the truth is, they're not who you thought they were. So stop waiting for them to come back and make it right, because if they could, they already would have. The closure is this: you're still standing, you're still healing, and you're no longer handing your peace to people who burned it the first time. Now that's closure. Forgiveness is noble, but re-access is a privilege, and not everyone deserves it. Some people didn't just make a mistake. They made a decision. They looked you in the eyes, recognized your worth, and chose to betray it anyway. And now, they want a second chance. They want another opening, another seat at the table they flipped the last time. But here's the question that emotional intelligence demands you ask. Are they truly sorry, or just sorry they lost access to you? Not everyone deserves to come back. We live in a culture that romanticizes second chances. We're told that giving people the benefit of the doubt makes us good, moral, evolved. But what if it doesn't? What if, in some cases, a second chance is just a second opportunity to be destroyed? Let's be clear. Forgiveness is about you. Access is about them. You can forgive someone in your heart, and still never let them near your peace again. Psychological boundaries are a form of protection. When someone violates your trust once, it's a warning. When they do it twice, it's a pattern. When you let them do it again, it becomes a lesson you're refusing to learn. And that's where the danger of second chances lies, not in the act itself, but in what it silently teaches your subconscious, that your self-worth is negotiable. That betrayal is acceptable as long as they ask nicely afterward. That your boundaries are optional and they get to decide when they matter. That isn't grace. That's self-abandonment, disguised as compassion. Apologies are easy, change is rare. Anyone can say, "I'm sorry," especially when they realize they've lost their supply. Especially when they feel the discomfort of their own consequences. But words are cheap when the damage is intentional. So ask yourself, have they acknowledged what they did without excuses? Have they taken accountability not just for the actions, but the impact? Have they demonstrated change through consistent, uncomfortable self-work? If the answer is no, then a second chance becomes a vote against yourself. Spiritual discipline is knowing when to let go. There's a quiet strength in walking away, not with rage, not with bitterness, but with clarity. Clarity that says, "You showed me who you are the first time. I'd be a fool to pretend otherwise the second." Spiritual discipline is refusing to give your energy to people who didn't protect it. It's the decision to choose your peace over their guilt trip. It's knowing that closure, redemption, and reconciliation are not always bundled together. Sometimes the healing path requires separation, even from people you once loved. Second chances can cost you your future. The most dangerous part of giving someone another chance isn't just the risk of being hurt again, it's what it costs you in time, in energy, in opportunity. Every minute spent rehabbing a dead connection is a minute stolen from your evolution. Every ounce of effort poured into proving your worth is a distraction from the truth. You never had to prove it in the first place. And every time you prioritize their comfort over your growth, you fall one step further from who you're meant to become. This is your high-performance mindset moment, to realize that your life is too valuable to be paused for someone else's growth curve. Let the first time be the last time. You are not cruel for closing the door. You are not heartless for enforcing distance. You are not unkind for protecting yourself from repeated damage. You are simply applying what you've learned. And that, right there, is maturity in motion. So let the first time be the last time. Let their memory be your teacher. Let your decision be your declaration. I am no longer available for people who made a choice to break me. Second chances are not always redemptive. Sometimes they're just replays of the same nightmare in a different disguise. And you're not here to live in loops. You're here to rise, to evolve, to guard your future like it matters, because it does. So when someone damages you intentionally, don't hand them another weapon in the name of second chances. Close the chapter, lock the door, and build a life so full they wouldn't even recognize the version of you they once tried to destroy. When someone damages you intentionally, they don't always walk away. Sometimes they stay, but not because they love you. They stay to keep control. And when you try to pull away, they don't apologize. They manipulate. They weaponize your empathy. They twist your compassion into a leash. And before you even realize it, You're apologizing for your boundaries. The guilt narrative. You're giving up on me. The moment you start setting limits, they shift the story. Suddenly, you're the problem. You're cold. You're too sensitive. You're throwing away everything you've built. They say things like, I know I messed up, but can't you see I'm trying? You're not perfect either. I just wish you'd fight for us the way I'm trying to. But notice the tactic. They're not owning their damage, they're shaming you for protecting yourself. This isn't remorse. This is emotional manipulation wrapped in sentimental language. And if your emotional intelligence isn't sharp, you'll confuse their guilt-tripping for love. The victim act, you hurt me by leaving. Here's where it gets darker. They flip the script entirely. Suddenly, they're not the abuser, they're the victim. They cry. They reminisce. They say things like, I opened up to you, and now you're abandoning me. I've never felt this way before, and now you're walking away. You said you'd always be there for me. But let's be clear, pain doesn't make someone innocent. Tears don't erase the harm they caused. This is not healing. This is reverse blame, and it's designed to keep you stuck. Because if they can convince you that leaving them is the real damage, then you'll stay to avoid feeling like the bad guy. But staying in pain just to avoid guilt isn't love. It's emotional self-sacrifice. The breadcrumbing. Maybe we can fix this. They sense you pulling away, and just before you close the door, they dangle a promise. I'll change. Let's start over. I can't lose you. They say just enough to keep hope alive, but not enough to actually do the work. This is breadcrumbing, a manipulation tactic where they feed you crumbs of affection, words without substance, just to keep you emotionally tethered. They don't want to rebuild. They want to reset the game so they can play it longer. Spiritual discipline is walking away without permission. Here's where your self-worth is tested. They will not release you willingly, because people who damage you intentionally rarely take accountability. They prefer to keep you emotionally obligated. So you must stop waiting for their blessing. Stop waiting for closure, for understanding, for mutual release. Your freedom doesn't require their validation. It requires your decision. Spiritual discipline means you walk away without applause. You let go without being seen. You close the door without needing them to understand why. Because true peace doesn't come from their clarity. It comes from your courage. They use history as a weapon. They'll remind you of how long you've known each other, what you've been through, the laughs, the intimacy, the trauma bonding. And they'll say things like, so you're just going to throw all of this away after everything we've been through. But let's be honest, if history was enough to justify their place in your life, they would have protected the relationship. Don't confuse shared time with shared values. Don't confuse memories with respect. The past is not a free pass to violate the present. Emotional intelligence means naming the manipulation. Call it what it is. Guilt tripping isn't love. Breadcrumbing isn't progress. Crying after destruction isn't accountability. Long history doesn't excuse repeated harm. The moment you name it, you reclaim your clarity. You see through the fog. You stand in your power. This is the psychological boundary that saves your sanity. I don't need to prove I'm kind by tolerating manipulation. You are not obligated to stay in emotional debt. Just because they're not finished using you doesn't mean you owe them more time. You are allowed to walk away even if they're still confused, even if they call you cruel, even if they swear they're changing, because real growth doesn't beg for access. It respects boundaries. It understands no. It doesn't twist your silence into punishment or your peace into betrayal. You don't owe anyone your continued suffering just because they regret causing it. And you don't have to prove anything to someone who saw your worth and still chose to break it. The manipulation ends when you say, "This isn't about being nice. This is about being free." They expect noise. They expect a reaction. They expect you to scream, to beg, to justify your pain, just to be heard. But when you give them nothing, not anger, not answers, not access, you activate the one thing they cannot tolerate: silence. Because silence isn't empty. Silence is power. And in the presence of your silence, their mask begins to crack. Silence denies them control. For toxic people, conflict is currency. They thrive in drama. They live for emotional chaos. They provoke and push just to get a rise out of you, because the moment you react, they win. If you scream, they'll call you unstable. If you explain, they'll twist your words. If you defend yourself, they'll accuse you of guilt. But when you go silent, when you say nothing, when your face is still and your voice is gone, you starve the monster they built their identity on. You're no longer fuel. You're no longer supply. You've become a mirror too clear for them to face. Emotional intelligence is knowing when to say nothing. There's a difference between being passive and being strategic. Your silence is not weakness. It's deliberate restraint. It says, "I don't owe you my energy. I don't need to prove myself anymore." That's emotional intelligence in action, choosing to rise above chaos instead of drowning in it. You don't need the last word. You don't need to win the argument, because silence already said everything they refused to hear. Your silence strips away their delusions. Toxic people live off projection. They need you to play a role, the villain, the weak one, the overreactor. They need your words to fit their narrative, but silence gives them nothing to work with. It leaves them alone with their own thoughts and their own guilt. They can't spin your silence into a lie. They can't twist your stillness into blame. And without you to deflect onto, they start to face themselves, and that terrifies them. Spiritual discipline is peace without performance. In a world addicted to reaction, peace is a rebellion. When you choose calm over chaos, detachment over drama, you're not just walking away, you're ascending. That's spiritual discipline. The kind that doesn't need an audience. The kind that quietly says, "I don't chase closure. I become closure." You don't need to slam doors. You don't need grand exits. Your silence is the final word, and they will hear it in the echo of your absence. Silence is more devastating than any argument. You want to know why they keep reaching out, why they check your stories, why they ask others about you. Because your silence isn't just peace, it's punishment they weren't prepared for. They expected chaos. They expected you to fall apart. Instead, you vanished. And in that void, they feel the collapse of everything they tried to control. Your silence is proof they lost access to the version of you that used to tolerate disrespect. And that, to them, is psychological death. Silence reinforces your boundaries without a fight. You don't have to explain why you walked away. You don't need to draft long paragraphs or revisit old wounds. Silence says, "You know what you did, and I know who I am now." No confrontation, no debate, no emotional debt left to collect. Just space, distance, and a door that stays shut not out of hatred, but out of respect for yourself. That's how inner peace sounds, like nothing, and it echoes louder than any scream ever could. Silence transforms you and haunts them. They thought silence meant weakness. They thought it meant you were unsure, scattered, broken. But time passed. You got better. You glowed up. You healed. You thrived and said nothing. And that is what haunts them. Because your silence didn't just reject them. It invalidated the entire version of themselves they projected onto you. Silence isn't empty. It's full of self-worth. When you go quiet, you're not disappearing. You're evolving in peace. No announcements. No drama. Just discipline. That's high-performance mindset. That's psychological freedom. That's what they never saw coming. So the next time someone tries to bait you, tries to drag you into an emotional battlefield they created, remember this: the loudest move you can make is no move at all. Let them talk. Let them spin. Let them drown in the silence you left behind. Because when you finally chose silence, you didn't lose control. You took it back. Forgiveness is powerful. But let's get one thing straight. Forgiveness is not a free pass back into your life. Just because you've forgiven someone doesn't mean they've earned the right to stand next to you again. That's not bitterness. That's emotional intelligence. Forgiveness is internal. Reconnection is conditional. Forgiveness is what you do for yourself to release the poison, the pain, the resentment. It's a personal act of spiritual discipline, a declaration that says, "I will not carry your damage in my heart anymore." But reconnection, that's external. That's earned. And it requires more than an apology. It requires accountability. It requires change. It requires consistent actions, not occasional regret. Forgiveness is not emotional amnesia. People often say, "But if you really forgave them, why are you still distant? Why don't you talk to them anymore? Why can't you let it go?" Let's be clear, forgiveness is not forgetting. Forgiveness is remembering without reliving. It's seeing the truth with clarity and choosing peace, not denial. You're allowed to forgive someone and still never trust them again. That's not hate. That's wisdom. Reconnection without boundaries is self-betrayal. When you reconnect with someone who has not done the work, you are not practicing kindness. You are participating in your own destruction. It is not noble to give people another shot when they are still armed with the same behavior that tore you down in the first place. You don't prove your growth by tolerating the old chaos again. You prove your growth by protecting your inner peace, and sometimes that means loving people from a very safe distance. Forgiveness is for your soul, not for their comfort. Some people want you to forgive them, not because they've changed, but because your silence makes them uncomfortable. They want to erase their guilt. They want to feel better about what they did without having to actually repair it. But you're not responsible for making someone feel better about the damage they never owned. Your forgiveness is not a favor to them. It's a gift to yourself. It's the release of a burden, not a reopening of the wound. You can let go without letting them back in. This is what high-performance mindset looks like in relationships. You let go not to welcome someone back, but to stop giving them emotional real estate in your mind. You don't chase closure anymore. You become closure. You no longer explain your silence. You no longer justify your boundaries. You simply move on because your healing is not up for debate. True forgiveness is disciplined, detachment. Real forgiveness means you've made peace with the past, but you're also wise enough not to repeat it. You don't hold grudges, but you do hold standards. And that's what they don't like. Because they expected your forgiveness to come with access, but you gave them closure instead. You showed them grace, not permission. You offered peace, not partnership. You healed, but you didn't reopen the door. And that's the boundary they never saw coming. Your self-worth is not a second chance. They may apologize. They may cry. They may even beg. But if their presence requires you to lower your standards again, to shrink again, to walk on eggshells again, that is not reconciliation. That is regression. You did not come this far. Tear down the barriers within yourself. Rebuild your mind. Strengthen your soul just to let someone walk back in with the same chaos, wearing a new mask. You didn't heal to play pretend. Your peace is sacred. Protect it. The world will pressure you to be soft, to just move on, to keep the peace. But peace isn't passive. Peace is protective. Peace is built on boundaries. So when you forgive, do it boldly but with discernment. Let it go, but don't let it return. Not everyone deserves a second chance at the healed version of you. So if they ask, why can't we go back to how things were? Tell them the truth. Because I'm not who I was when I allowed that. Forgiveness set you free. Boundaries keep you free. And that's what they'll never understand. Let's kill the illusion right now. They weren't confused. They weren't lost. They weren't going through something. They were calculating. They were deliberate. They knew exactly what they were doing when they hurt you. And you know how we know, because they only do it to people who won't fight back. Emotional intelligence requires facing the truth, not justifying the pain. It's easier to believe they didn't mean to hurt you. Because if it wasn't intentional, then maybe you didn't waste your love. Maybe they're still redeemable. Maybe the story still has hope. But that's not healing. That's denial wrapped in empathy. True emotional intelligence means you're no longer protecting other people's reputations at the cost of your own clarity. It means you're done gaslighting yourself with excuses like, maybe they didn't know better. Maybe it's just their trauma. Maybe I'm just too sensitive. No. Maybe they knew what they were doing and did it anyway. Intentional harm hides behind confusion. Ask yourself, did they treat you with kindness when it served them? Did they turn cold the moment you needed something back? Did they know how to behave with others, but not with you? That's not confusion. That's selective cruelty. People know how to be respectful when it benefits them. They know how to be kind when the spotlight is on. So when they choose to mistreat you in private, that's not an accident. That's character. They studied your soft spots, then used them. One of the most painful realizations on your healing journey is this. They didn't just hurt you by chance. They hurt you strategically. They found your insecurities. They noticed your silence. They clocked the moments you put their needs above your own, and then they weaponized it. That's not immaturity. That's not trauma response. That's emotional manipulation. And it needs to be called what it is without sugarcoating it. Spiritual discipline means naming the betrayal without justifying it. The more spiritual you become, the more compassionate you become, but also the more clear-eyed you must be. Compassion is not permission. Forgiveness is not blindness. When someone repeatedly crosses your boundaries, ignores your needs, and drains your spirit, your spiritual duty is not to make excuses for them. It's to protect your soul from further harm, and that starts with seeing them for who they are, not who you hoped they would be. Stop giving the benefit of the doubt to people who benefit from your doubt. They only question your memory when your memory exposes them. They only call you dramatic when your emotions threaten their comfort. They only want peace when silence means no consequences. You're not crazy. You're not too emotional. You're not unforgiving. You're finally seeing clearly, and that terrifies them. They didn't just damage you, they planned around it. They didn't just stumble into your heart and accidentally break it. They walked in, saw the kindness, saw the patience, saw the loyalty, and thought, I can use this. That's not carelessness. That's predatory behavior wrapped in charm. And the moment you stop pretending it wasn't, you reclaim every piece of your stolen power. They don't deserve your doubt. You deserve closure. Every time you excuse them with, maybe they didn't mean it, you invalidate your own pain. You rewrite your own history. You become complicit in their gaslighting to yourself. But here's the truth. The pain didn't lie. The pattern didn't lie. Your gut didn't lie. They did. And now, clarity is your closure, not their apology, not their explanations, just truth, and the strength to live by it. Call it what it is, so you never accept it again. Stop calling it a mistake if it was a decision. Stop calling it confusion if it was a strategy. Stop calling it love if it came with conditions. You owe yourself truth without distortion. That's how healing begins. Because you didn't get hurt by accident. You got hurt because someone made a choice, and you kept giving chances. Not anymore. This is where the pattern ends. This is where your story changes. You don't owe them closure. You don't owe them a conversation. You don't owe them another chance to distort your truth. What you do owe is to yourself, your sanity, your peace, your right to walk away from anything that once convinced you to betray your own soul. You owe yourself everything you kept giving away to people who didn't know what to do with it. You owe them nothing, not even an explanation. People will say, at least hear them out. Maybe it's time to reconcile. You're being too harsh. No, you're being clear. There's a difference. Clarity looks like silence when they're used to chaos. It looks like detachment when they're used to controlling you. They want your softness, not because they respect it, but because they know how to exploit it. But not anymore. Because now, you understand. Your healing doesn't require a committee. Your peace doesn't require permission. Your boundaries don't need to be approved by the people they protect you from. Your silence is a full sentence. You don't need to respond to that message. You don't need to revisit that chapter. You don't need to meet them halfway when they never moved an inch. Your silence says everything they refused to hear when you were screaming in pain. Your silence is not pettiness. It's power. It's closure. It's the full sentence that ends the story with no sequel. You don't heal by re-explaining your pain. They heard you the first time. They just didn't care. They saw your tears. They saw your breakdowns. They saw your spirit draining. And still they continued. So what makes you think they deserve a recap now? You don't need them to understand. You need you to understand that continuing this cycle is self-betrayal, and you've outgrown that version of yourself, the one who explained, justified, begged, hoped. You're done educating people on how to treat you. You're done translating your humanity into a language they still won't speak. Your loyalty was to the wrong people. Now, redirect it. You kept showing up, kept being loyal, kept giving chances not because they deserved it, but because you're built that way. But here's the pivot now. You give that same loyalty to yourself. You protect your energy the way you once protected their reputation. You defend your peace the way you once defended their potential. And guess what? That doesn't make you cold. It makes you wise. It makes you unshakable. It makes you someone who finally sees that not everyone deserves access to the healed version of you. Just because you've healed doesn't mean they've changed. They may circle back with tears, with apologies, with grand declarations of regret. But tears are not repentance. Words are not evidence. Time is not transformation. And forgiveness doesn't mean reunion. It means release. You can heal and still block. You can forgive and still say goodbye. You can move on and never look back. You owe them nothing. But you owe yourself everything you sacrificed while waiting for them to become who they pretended to be. Self-respect is the final stage of healing. You've cried enough. You've over-explained enough. You've tolerated enough. Now you protect your mind like a fortress. You guard your energy like sacred ground. You honor your intuition like gospel. Because the healed version of you, they don't get to meet them. Not after what they did to the broken one. No more apologies for being unavailable to chaos. From this point forward, you don't apologize for having boundaries, being harder to access, refusing to explain your peace, walking away without a dramatic exit. You don't carry guilt for choosing silence over closure. You don't carry shame for choosing detachment over chaos. You don't carry regret for burning bridges that were built on your destruction. You don't owe them clarity. You owe yourself consistency. This is where it ends, and where you begin again. This isn't just the end of the story. It's the beginning of a new chapter where you no longer make room for those who damage with intention and apologize with manipulation. You're no longer loyal to your old wounds. You're no longer explaining why you left the fire they kept lighting. You're just gone, healed, awake, and finally unavailable. Because you owe them nothing, but you owe yourself everything. They didn't break you by accident. They did it because they thought you wouldn't wake up. They miscalculated. They thought you'd come back. They thought you'd need them. They thought you'd be too soft, too loyal, too afraid to walk away. But now you're done. Done explaining. Done doubting yourself. Done handing out grace to people who only showed you patterns.